Well, greetings and salutations, test takers. This is the Series 7 Guru coming to you from my off-grid studio, getting our kicks on Route 66. We will take care of some housekeeping and then we'll get underway. We're every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Arizona time. After the live stream, it's available as a podcast on both the YouTube channel and Spotify. Go ahead and share our weekly live stream with anybody who needs help with content for any FINRA NASAA exam. Anybody who needs a little pick-me-up, some fellowship, and some fun, send them our way. Let us know what series exam you're taking and where you're joining us from. We would appreciate that. I think our record so far is we have India as I think the longest person geographically from us. If you do have a question, the format would be to put SIE or Series 7, S7, S24, whatever, with a capital Q followed by the question. That way I can pick it more readily out of the chat, and I'll know what kind of content. You know, some content is overlaps from test to test, but the depth at which they test it could be substantially different. It's not necessary, but it is helpful. The best free supplement to your paid study materials is my YouTube channel. And the series, the YouTube channel is organized by your series playlist. You find your series exam, SIE, for example. I have like 4, I think, playlists for the SIE. The playlist are in suggested watch order, and the videos in the playlist are in suggested watch order. It's a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. There's 1,400 plus videos. If you're looking for a particular topic, like parity or convertibles or margin, put that in the channel search bar. I can't tell you how many people will ask me something that if they would have put it in the channel search bar, maybe more than one video would have come up. If you put parity or convertibles, maybe 10 videos come up. So make access to that search bar so you're not trying to find a needle in a haystack. If you're looking for a paid supplement, I think a Kaplan Q Bank, if you don't already have one, is a great paid supplement. On Series 7, for example, with my 15% discount code at checkout, that's over 3,600 questions for $55.80. That discount good is for any is good for any product, Kaplan product or service. It has a performance tracker. I think the Kaplan Q Bank is the best out there in terms of quality and quantity. Yeah, my friend Brian, the Test Geek, he gives our viewers a 20% discount on his content. So that brings it to about $100 all in on his video course, his PDF class notes, and his practice exam. I do collaborate with Kaplan on classes, and the next Guru Exam Prep Kaplan class is February 18th through 20th. Again, my 15% discount code works for that class. You can find that on the Kaplan website, and February 18th, and it will show me, the Guru, Dean Tenney, as the instructor. We have a weekly Q&A jam session for members. It's not too exclusive to become a member. You just have to go to my booking page. We'll be doing that tomorrow, and that's Dean Tenney, tutoring.setmore.com. You go to classes and you'll see our weekly Q&A jam session listed there. If you don't see it, it means it's, what happens, I put a cap on it. When it reaches the cap, it disappears. So if it doesn't show, that means it's full. And as I said, you can find that at deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. We have communities. We have a Facebook community called Baby Brokers Doing Hat Tricks. We're coming up on 800 members or 900 members. I can't recall which. Baby brokers is a term of endearment for rookies in the securities industry. And a hat trick is 3 successes in a row in a time frame, right? That would be your SIE 766 or SIE 663. You get the idea. I know some of you have to do more than that. We also have Reddit communities. We have a subreddit for Series 6, R Series 6. We have a subreddit for the SIE exam in Series 7, R Series 7. We have a subreddit for NASAA exams, 63, 65, 66, R Series 66. And we have a subreddit for 9, 10s, 24s, 4s, 53s, 79s, called R Series 24. All right. One question that came up is, what is a blackout period? What is a blackout period? This showed up on debrief with a couple people taking 65s and 66s. And the answer to that question is, a blackout period in financial markets is a period of time where certain people, executive employees or both, are prohibited from buying or selling shares in their company. This is pretty typical around an earnings release, right? Today we had companies reporting their earnings, and it'd be difficult for that company employees to be buying or selling if they're in possession of that earnings information. It's a voluntary thing. If they already have a pre-programmed trade stock trading plan in place, they can still trade. But the answer I think they would be looking at is definitional. What best describes a blackout period, and then you would come up with the definition. All right, let's see what's going on in chat. Let me get rid of that banner. Let's get rid of this banner. Boom, and let's see what's happening in chat. Cost basis versus sales proceeds. Cost base follows break even. I said, yeah, that sounds like you watched one of my videos. Rosa, the most common thing, and I think people go overboard on taxation on options. Again, you can put into the search bar, I have entire tutoring replays of taxation on options. I've got 20 practice questions you can walk with taxation options. Is that there because I think it's important on the test? The answer is no. More often than not, if you watch that replay, you'll find out that it's basically, asking you break even. And in that video, and that's probably where this came from, I said 99% of the time they ask you cost basis. If you solve for the break even, you'll be correct. Rosa's question is, when does cost basis versus sales breed, when does it not follow break even? The one that shows up more often in test prep vendor content, not the test, is a covered call. If I buy Apple at 222 and I sell a 230 call at 5, the break even is not the cost basis. My cost basis is what I paid for the Apple, 222. My sales proceeds would be the strike 230 plus what I received for the premium. So that's the big one. That's the main one. All right, what's next? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't put that on there. There's Rosa's. There's her question. Qualified dividends are taxed as the same as long-term gains. That's not true, because long-term gains could be 15 to 20, depending on who you are. The test question is qualified dividends. If you own a stock, this is not testable. If you own a stock 60 to 90 days from the record date, it's not going to be taxed at ordinary income. And so what you need to know about that is that it's going to be taxed at lower than ordinary income, like a capital gain rate. Right? So anytime we can get a lower tax rate, we're certainly interested in doing that. So it could be taxed at the same as long-term gains, depending on your tax return. But I don't like the same. I would like to say, like a long-term gain, it's less than your ordinary income. Rules for gifted securities, stock basis for losses. Well, in the test, there's a difference between gifting securities to the one they like on a test is a granddaughter. Gifting that to your granddaughter, or the granddaughter inherits the stock, very testable. If you gift the securities, the person who receives them assumes your cost basis. So if I gift my nephew Apple, I buy 1,000 shares of Apple, 222, and I gift that to my nephew, his cost basis is $222 a share. If Uncle Dean meets his demise and he inherits the Apple stock, there's going to be a step up in the cost base. And so let's say Uncle Dean meets his demise in Apple's 243. Then his cost base is 243. I think most people go way overboard on taxes. I think taxes are best learned through the actual investment vehicle. I do have a video, and I'll link in the video description, called Death and Taxes. No, just taxes, right? So I'll link to that. When saving for her retirement, a variable annuity owner is investing $1,000 a month. So that's $1,000 she's already paid taxes on. And yes, the accumulation units today are shares in the mutual fund. I think, no, that's not correct. So I think of a variable annuity as a mutual fund with an insurance wrapper. The mutual fund and the variable annuity is a separate account. And when you're investing $1,000 a month, you're buying accumulation units. And those are like shares. They go up or down based on the value of the securities in the separate account. So you thought incorrectly. When you annuitize, then they turn into annuity units. So until you annuitize, they are not annuity units. They're accumulation units. It's an accounting method. And then they are fixed. So that is the answer to that one. Series 65 from Colorado, testing Friday. Scored 76 on Brian's midterm. Love it. 80 on Brian's final. Well, you look good. Romulus. Love that name. Yeah, you look fine. You look good. So I don't see any red flags there whatsoever. The Captain Mastery, the variance test question, Romulus, the variance, the standard deviation on the Kaplan Master Exam is 5 to 12. Improvement. That's back in the days when they actually gave reportable scores even when you passed, Romulus. So 73 on the Master Exam, I don't think puts you at risk. As I just said, I would expect a minimum improvement from the Kaplan Master Exam of 5. So I put you at 78. So you're looking in good shape. I think you should make it. Well, thank you, John. I'll be sending you good test 5, So we'll be with you in spirit, right? How much time should I spend on taxation? I think I just answered this. Not much, particularly on 66. I wouldn't spend any time on options, to be honest with you. You might get one strategy. Options are derivatives. So in 66, you could expect 3, 4, 5 derivative questions. And the new content there is going to be futures. And I think futures are pretty straightforward because there's not calls and puts. You simply go long or short, right? You think the price of soybeans is going up, you go long the futures. You think the price of soybeans are going down, you go short the soybean futures. So I probably would spend more time on that just because that's something that wasn't on your 7. But again, I wouldn't worry about taxation on options on any of the exams, including the Series 7. It's more important to understand the nomenclature, terminology of options, and to understand strategies and suitability. Why would somebody do a covered call, for example, to generate additional income? Why would somebody buy a put on stock they're holding? To hedge, to have the ability to participate in a big price increase, but not a big price decline. I would add on 66, the options, the flavor of the options on 66 is more about hedging than speculation. Taking 65 in April, currently streaming from Costa Rica. Wow, what a beautiful country. I've been to Costa Rica a couple times. Beautiful place. You could have said steaming instead of streaming because it can get pretty hot in the jungle there, right? But Costa Rica is a great place. Phoenix is a good place too. I went to Arizona State. I spent a lot of time in Tempe, and now I'm in northern Arizona off grid in between Flagstaff and Kingman. It's funny how life works out, isn't it? I mean, I had to move from Vegas this last month and I re-registered all my cars. And, the guy at the DMV, I said, hey, can I get an Eagle, Globe, and Anchor as a Marine? And he said, well, Dean, do you have a copy of your DD-214 with you? I go, I do not. He said, well, then we can't give you the Marine Corps plate. I said, well, do I have to prove that I actually graduated from Arizona State to get a Sparky plate? He goes, nope, you don't have to prove that at all. I go, I'll take that. So I got the Sparky plate. My brother said, people are going to think you're actually a local because you got an Arizona State diploma and you got an Arizona State license plate. I go, yeah. AMT on 7. So there's a suitability question on this, John. So we call it an industrial development revenue bond. The IRS calls that a private activity bond. The major beneficiary of an industrial development revenue bond is the corporation. So that's the first point. So maybe I'm recommending to you an industrial development revenue bond, and here comes the test question. I say for this to be suitable, I need to make sure you're not subject to the alternative minimum tax. This is a binary suitability question. What I mean by binary, it's a simple yes or no. You don't need to get into the weeds on the AMT. Basically, if you have a large amount of income and you take deductions and it looks like we owe you money to be a taxpayer, about 200 grand. Your accountant's going to say, hey, bad news here. I got to recalculate using the alternative minimum tax. Do you have any private activity bonds? You say, what the heck is that? He says, that's an industrial development revenue bond. So that's what you should know about the AMT. Test prep vendors go way overboard, John, on, intangible drilling costs and other things that are what are called preference items. The only preference item under the AMT, meaning it's going to be taxable that you get tested on, is that industrial development bond. Marcel, I owe you an apology. I did not get back to you on the appointment. I got to go pick up mom as soon as I'm done here from bingo in town. Early next week looks good. So I have you in the systems, Marcel. So I'll tell you what, just so we don't keep putting this off, I'm going to send you a link. And if that doesn't work for you, let me know and I'll move that link. But I'll send you a link for early next week. Can you go over questions where they use? Well, John, I would think the better way to do that would be to join me tomorrow for our weekly Q&A jam session where I have a whiteboard and I can bring up the Kaplan Q Bank or other questions and show you actual questions with that. These are memory aids to remind us or help us remember capacity. So I say, John, at Goldman Sachs, we are a broker dealer. And in some transactions with us that you do at Goldman Sachs, we're going to be acting in our broker agency capacity. On your behalf, we're going to get the security elsewhere, and you're going to owe us a commission. In other transactions you do with us at Goldman Sachs, we're going to be acting in our dealer principal capacity, and we're going to charge you a markup or a markdown. We will never be a broker and a dealer in the same trade. It makes sense. I mean, how could I, John, act as your agent in negotiation with myself about a markup or markdown? So we'll never be both. I will disclose the capacity on your confirmation. So on your confirmation, it'll say whether the broker dealer acted in its broker agency capacity or dealer principal capacity. Now, if we act in our broker agency capacity, the contraparty, the other side of the trade, where did I get that, is not on the confirm. For example, Robinhood doesn't have inventory. Schwab does not have inventory. So Schwab and Robinhood are sending their orders to a market-making firm. And so if you're doing business with Schwab, on your confirmation, it will always say Schwab acted in its broker agency capacity, and you owe Schwab a commission for doing so. And then, John, you can call and say, who is the other side? And Schwab will tell you Citadel. Citadel is the preference market maker for Schwab and Robinhood. Citadel is a market-making firm, pays hundreds of millions of dollars to have those orders from Robinhood and Schwab go to Citadel. So every time you call me, I'm going to say Citadel, Citadel, Citadel. Now, you're no worse position for payment for order flow because our preference market maker, John, always agrees Citadel the honor the inside market, very testable. The highest bid and the lowest ask, regardless of what they're displaying elsewhere. Whatever markets are NASDAQ, whatever. Now here comes the memory aid devices. Please note, I would prefer you understand something and then add the memory aid rather than memorize the memory aid and not know the context in which it's being used. So ABCD is a memory aid for agent, broker, commission, disclose. So that's a memory aid. So you said, okay, that's a disclosure that's necessary. DIPM is a memory aid for dealer, inventory, principal, markup, or markdown. So those are memory aid devices. I have another one. You can use brokers act as agents for commissions. You can use dealers act as principal for profits. So that's primarily a disclosure question. Hey, investing. I wouldn't say investing in a broad-based index. Okay. Is a way to manage a portfolio's volatility. I would like more context here because the volatility of an index is, according to test question to beta, 1, right? An S&P index fund, think Vanguard here, right, is based on the S&P 500 and has a beta 1. Whatever the thing does, that's what the market does. So I don't like the link to volatility. The link to volatility on a test would be to tell you that a portfolio has a beta of 1.5. For example, and know that's 1.5 times more volatile than the index. The broad-based index, the one we use on the test question is S&P 500, right? So that's the one that we're going to be using for beta and for alpha and that kind of stuff. So on that one, Buvana, I needed some more context. But I would definitely know the measurement of a stock or portfolio's volatility as compared to the market. Definitely would know that's beta. And again, this idea of managing volatility, that's a different thing. What would be there is we need to do some, have more information, like what's the correlation kind of thing. Recorded discounted flows. Can you please explain? Yes, Louise, I hope I pronounced that right. First concept on discounted cash flow. I will link to a video. I have more than one tutoring replays. Again, this doesn't lend itself well, this format. So I'll link to a video, but I will make an attempt to explain this to you. The classic example of discounted cash flow. Now, last time this came up in a live stream, and you could put DCF in the search bar. The person who asked this question took me to task for what I'm about to say. In my, 4-decade career, sometimes I've had to do math that is very important. And if the math is important, I would hire Lee to do it for me. He's brilliant. Nobody's math is going to be any more pristine than Lee's. And the example that a lot of us like to use is I win the lottery. And I call Lee and I say, hey, Lee, I won the lottery. They're offering me $1 million or $100,000 for 15 years. I know this is a math problem. And so I'd like you to figure out what I should do here. Now, one concept about doing discounted cash flow, because what we're trying to do is figure out what is the present value of $100,000 a year for 15 years. So I can make a decision about whether I want to take the million or take the payments. And the 100,000 this year is certainly going to be worth more than the 100,000 15 years from today. So discounted cash flow is a valuation technique. I'll take it into the market here in just a sec. And Lee calls me. He says, Dean, I've done the DCF, the discounted cash flow. The present value of $100,000 for 15 years is $900,000. Okay, so I take the million. He says, Dean, the present value of $100,000 for 15 years is $1.1 million. I take the payments. Net always means the difference. And, net present value is the difference between whatever that present value is, right? So now let's just talk about this as it applies to a bond. So I have a bond, let's say it's a 7% bond. So that means it's paying me $35 every 6 months. Let's say it's a 20-year bond, or excuse me, 10-year bond. So 10 years, $35, I'm going to get 20 payments. How did Dean get the 20 payments? I got the 20 payments because it's 10 years to maturity and there's 2 payments a year. So what I'm trying to figure out again is what is the present value of those payments to decide whether I want to buy this bond or not. Is it fairly valued, overvalued, undervalued? And then I got to figure out what is the present value of $1,000 10 years from today. And so again, this is given information. It's not, can you do this math? It's, do you know kind of the inputs and the outputs, right? In terms of what's going on. So let's say the bond is priced at 900 and I get the net present value is 800. That's negative net present value. Why would I want to pay 800? Well, positive net present value. Let's say the bond's priced at 900 and the present value is 800. Why would I pay 9, right? It's overvalued. If I find out the present value is 1,000, I can get it for 900, then I would do it. That's called positive net present value. So discounted cash flow is the valuation technique. Now we can also do this with a stock. Bank of America pays a 21-cent quarterly dividend. So discounted cash flow, as it applies to a stock, is called the dividend discount model. And again, we can make the assumption, again, that the 21 cents that Bank of America pays the next quarter is worth more than what it's going to pay 10 years from today. And, I would do a present value calculation, figure out what the current market price of Bank of America is and say, do I want to buy it based on that? It's a valuation technique, like PE ratios, a valuation technique, like book value, price to book is a valuation technique. These are valuation techniques. I could also apply it to a stock and assume that dividend's going to grow, and that would be called dividend growth model. Internal rate of return sounds like this, again, is a question about analytical methods. Internal rate of return is the bridge between present value and future value. So I say, hey, listen, if we can invest today $100,000 at 7.2%, and we can, in 20 years, have 400,000. So the internal rate of return there I gave you was 7.2. That's what turns the 100,000 present value and the 400,000 future value, right? And again, that's locked in if it's like a bond. You can think of the internal rate of return as kind of like yield to maturity, right? That's what takes whatever you paid for the bond to that price. I did a lot of work as a placement agent for private equity firms, at least, and I'd say we're targeting internal rates of return of 25%. And if we can get 25% internal rate of return and you invest $10 million in this private equity fund and we get that, here's what the future value would be. So that's that bridge between those two numbers. I'll link to a video. Video format's a little better, where you can watch me on a whiteboard in a tutoring replay, or you can watch me do it in a class. Well, thank you. Thank you. This is my off-grid studio. I don't know how many of you have been with me since I was in Las Vegas. So, my Las Vegas studio is kind of nice, but this is working out pretty good here off-grid. I'm on Starlink and I got a backup. I think last time, is my audio okay? Last week, that camera behind me has a microphone in it, and I didn't know it, but it was on the back microphone instead of the front microphone. So I start saying 65 now will be enough time. Absolutely. That's dependent on how many other things you got going on in your life, Jeff. I mean, are you a full-time studier? Are you a part-time studier? Do you have a family? Does that include kids? Do you have to come in the office and work? But yes, in general, I think that's plenty of time. You are welcome. I'm scoring mid-70s, 80s flat on STC. Didn't do well on Brian's test. Well, I don't know what to tell you. Yes, Cameron, I've said this over and over again. The strongest correlation to the actual exam is Brian's test. You don't have to put your business on the street with us, but I'd like to know that score. And it's legit. And so if it's a bad score, then you better, get your butt in gear and do something about it. Because, some people get frustrated with STC, Kaplan, past perfect. And I get it. And we were talking about, Cameron, this idea of variance. And if you're going with STC or Kaplan or past perfect or Notman, I feel pretty comfortable with those scores in terms of not having a lot of variance. In other words, I don't know what you got on Brian's, and I just told you, remember, this idea on 65, 66 of standard deviation. And I'm telling you, Brian has a smaller standard deviation variance. But anyways, I had a young lady, and she was so frustrated with her scores that she went and bought a vendor that I did not name, and her scores rocketed. And she felt so good. And I said, well, I don't want to rain on your parade. I know you're feeling pretty good, but do me a favor. Do the Brian's Test Geek practice test. Let's just see if that confirms that score, or does it confirm what's been your Kaplan scores? Now, unfortunately, this is like the day before the exam, and she doesn't have a lot of time for remediation. And she got a 65 on Brian's test, and guess what she got on the actual test? 65. So yes, it has very strong correlation. Which will be the best way to file a tax return for a single father with 2 children? No, you will not see anything, and I don't know. I'm not a single father with 2 children, and I don't think you'll see that on the test. Again, I think people overestimate how many tax questions they're going to get. I would say head of household is how I would have answered it. That's a test prep vendor question. It is not a 65, 66 question. So Cameron, sometimes people give me grief. I say, don't worry about it. It's not this. How do you know? And I said, I'm literally talking to hundreds of thousands of test takers. And if I told somebody that and it wasn't true, they'd show up in the live stream and say, hey, Dean, you told me I wasn't there, and it was. CMO video. Well, yeah, the CMO video, the main test point of CMOs is to make sure you understand the difference between a plan amortization class, which is the year-to-year cascading cash flows, which has more predictability and less risk, versus the targeted amortization classes, which are the later cash flows, have less predictability and more risk. Well, the Ginnie Mae is very testable. They love on the test except. I can't imagine any draw of your Series 7 in which you don't get asked that Ginnie Mae's pay interest and principal monthly. It's the only investment we have that pays interest and principal monthly. On the SIE, you should know how investments pay. Stocks, if they do pay, they may or may not pay dividends, but if they do, they pay it quarterly. Ginnie Mae pays monthly. Bonds pay semi-annually, right? So you need to know how investments pay. The other thing about Ginnie Mae that's very testable is, unlike Fannie Mae, they have the full faith and credit of the United States Treasury. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac do not. They have an implied backing. Implied isn't as good as direct backing. And all of them are fully taxable. So I would be standby for on your exam an except question about Ginnie Mae's. All following are true of Ginnie Mae's except A, they pay interest and principal monthly. True. They're fully taxable. True. They have the full faith and credit of the United States government, U.S. Treasury. True. And then D will be something that's not true. Something that's not true. Following up the last time I sent a message, Series 23, I'm convinced the boss will allow me to sponsor for 24. Oh, thank goodness. Woo! I think that's a much better way to go. I mean, it's going to be a little more stuff, but I think it's really, I always believe in going full registration when given the opportunity instead of limited registration. to try and trap me. Hope it's not true. I hope that's not true. But, I had a guy I worked for, and he's reached out to me now that, and he found me on YouTube again. His name is Jeff. Jeff, if you're watching this, I apologize for what I'm about to say. But, all of us who started with Jeff learned a lot. And then, Jeff wouldn't pay us and we had to move on to greener pastures, so to speak. And even when I left him, I said, you could have kept this band together if you would have just paid us. He said, well, my business model, Dean, is, to sponsor people and pay them, not as much as competitors, but teach them a lot. And then they could go and make their money elsewhere. And I go, well, yeah, that's kind of sad, I guess. But, I'm a result of that as well. Anyways, this was 5-10 years ago, he reached out to me. And he was going to give his sales assistant a limited registration. And I said, well, listen, Jeff, I'll comp him tutoring for the 7. Look at this person through the 7 and give him a 7, get him full registration. And then he said exactly that. Well, then they might leave me. Like, oh, gee, that's not really good attitude. Update on 60. I need to try again. Oh, man, that hurts. 4 questions on a SPAC. Wow. I know 2 of them. I don't know if you remember the other 2, but 2 of them. A special purpose acquisition corporation is also known as a blank check company. This is where we raise money and then we use the funds to go buy a company. And, we buy the private company and now that's how we take the private company public, right? So True Social Media was done through a SPAC. So what they did is raise this money and then the SPAC, the Special Purpose Acquisition Corporation, bought True Social and merged it. And now Truth Social becomes, a publicly held company, which President Trump, I think, owns 50%, right? He owned 100%, but now he owns 50 because, gave a bunch of stock to the SPAC. The second test question that I would be aware of on a SPAC is how do we value a blank check company, a blind pool like that? Because we don't know what we're buying yet. And so the public offering price in a SPAC is $10. So those are the 2 questions I know about. This idea that you have more risk because we're raising money, we're not identifying the use of the funds. I don't know if you'll get this, but if we don't find an acquisition within 2 years, we got to give everybody back their money. And then that public offering price being $10. So I don't know, Yash, if you remember the 4th one or whatever those other 2 are, I'd certainly be interested. Yeah, I'm totally agree with you on that. Totally agree with you. The question was all ways to manage portfolios volatility except, well, 1 is certainly true. Yet 2 is certainly true. Investments with income streams are more stable in price than investments that do not have income streams. So that's true. Invest in a broad-based index. I told you I don't like that one. Buy assets with low correlation. That's true. I would prefer it's a negative correlation. So yeah, I would have answered 3 there. A broad-based index is going to move with the market. So we're looking for different correlations. So I would have said 3 would have been my answer on that question. Definitely 1. And then remember the asset class we're hoping has different correlation than the other asset classes. Dividend paying stocks, yes. Income, by the way, income in general, but a stock with a dividend is more stable in price than a stock without a dividend, right? So 2 is true. And then low correlation, I prefer that says negative, but given that answer, so I would have taken 3. You're welcome. Just completed the hat trick. Woo! We ring the bell for testing victories. Ask not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. Listen, the ringing the bell, Michael, comes from, it's the greatest movie ever made on banking. And you can watch it Christmas time, and it's called It's a Wonderful Life. And It's a Wonderful Life, Jimmy Stewart is the guy who's managing the credit union. He loses the reserve. The reserve is how much a bank has to have to meet its everyday demands for money. And so, he goes to see Mr. Potter. Mr. Potter would like to have a monopoly on banking in the small town, because then if he has a monopoly on money, the cost of money is whatever he says. So anyways, there's a run on the bank and he has to, explain fractional banking to people in like 5-10 minutes. A great movie. But anyways, in the movie, there's an angel named Clarence. And Clarence says that whenever a bell is ringing, that's an angel getting their wings. So we've adopted that for testing victories. Manual help. Well, it's always so very gratifying, Michael, when the content we have on the YouTube channel contributes to testing victories. Never in my wildest dreams, Michael, when I started the YouTube channel. I started the YouTube channel during COVID because I wasn't sure I was ever going to get to teach a live class again. Because I used to go around the country and around the world teaching live classes. And so I started the YouTube channel. Never in my wildest dreams did I think we would have 1,400 videos. We're coming up on 6 million views. We have 44,000 subscribers. Crazy. The success of the channel, Michael, is directly related. I've always said this even in test prep circles. When I was a senior member of the management team at Kaplan, I'm not anymore. I'm kind of retired, but the business isn't that difficult. If we can help people pass their tests, and they refer other people to us, it's pretty easy, right? I remember Michael always hiring a new instructor, and he said, "How important is it that people pass their test?" I go, "That's a sine qua non. It's the most essential thing, right? That they pass their exams, right?" So, kudos. It's Brian. I told you, Brian, my brother from another mother. He's a jerk, isn't he? He's as big a jerk as the person who writes the test. Did I get it right, Cameron? Is that the right answer according to Brian's Test Geek? Listen, Brian doesn't mind talking about his content. I just did an SIE practice test today, shared screen, and the guy gave me permission to put it up. You have Test Geek. All the Test Geek practice tests are on the channel, and you can watch me do it, hit pause and play, or you can watch me and a student do it. I don't think I've got one yet where it's me and a student. Those are more popular. I guess misery likes company. People seem to be more attracted to the videos where you can watch me and a test taker do the practice thing. Producer me is kind of like, hey, come on, let's pick up the pace here. You can always hit fast forward or hit the 5-second thing and do that. So Brian's up there. And so there'll be another one here probably next week. I got to have permission. I got permission. And then I wait till the person passes the test to put it up. So I think it's going to be like February 14th. There'll be a Test Geek SIE exam. Uniform Securities Act and SEC for solicitor fees. Well, under Uniform Securities Act, you can't use a third-party solicitor who's not registered as an investment advisor representative. And if you're a federally covered investment advisor under SEC rules, the investment advisory firm can pay a third-party solicitor who's not registered. This would be a broker-dealer. And a lot of investment advisors hire broker-dealers. So, Bhavana, this is what I was. I was a solicitor, my broker-dealer, a placement agent for federally covered investment advisors like Carlyle. Carlyle is a private equity firm, federally covered investment advisors, and they would pay my broker-dealer, please note, Gamma Global Investments is not registered as an investment advisor, to go raise money, find clients for them, right? And they charge 2 and 20. So if you invest $100 million in that private equity fund, they're going to pay Gamma Global Investments, the broker-dealer, a 2%, $2 million fee. I say, now, Bhavana, you're in no worse position because you would have paid Carlyle the $2 million or Gamma Global the $2 million. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's not any additional cost. If it was, I would have to tell you that to access the federally covered advisor through my broker-dealer is going to cost you more money. Please note, I could do that as a 763. I don't need a 65. I can be an agent of the broker-dealer to go solicit on behalf of the federally covered advisor. On the federal covered advisor version, right? Because remember, I just told you on the Uniform Securities Act, this has to be a 65, an investment advisor rep who's soliciting. On the the federally covered side, I have to have 2 brochures. Bhavana, this tells you about Gamma Global Investments, the solicitor. This tells you about Carlyle. And then Carlyle is going to send you something to acknowledge that I disclosed to you this relationship and that I'm not the Carlyle guy. As much as I explained that, Bhavana, when I sat on the floor of the Warrior Games before I retired, I was a season ticket holder from the bad days of the Golden State Warriors to the glory days. And I used to get so many people, oh, you're that Carlyle guy. I said, I'm not that Carlyle guy. Please don't call me the Carlyle guy. David Rubenstein, the guys at Carlyle are going to be mad if they think I'm out there holding myself out as a Carlyle guy, right? So that's the distinction. All the vendor tests and so close to pass. I'm with you. I think both Brian and I agree that the NASA exams, I think, are more challenging. I just think they're more challenging. And when people take exception to like Series 7 people, oh, what do you mean? I'm like, well, at least with the 7, there's a narrative thread to it. It kind of makes sense. And where the NASA exams are all over the place. I mean, they're here, then they're over there. And There's not a lot of target-rich environments, so to speak. It's 2 questions here, 3 questions there. So I think it's really challenging. I got around a 65 through 65. It's super frustrating. Well, like I say, feel free to call Brian. There's no problem reaching out to Brian and saying, hey, what's up? Right? He doesn't mind talking about his content, and Brian knows this. I get tired of standing up. I told you I just did a shared screen final. I said, yeah, I don't really care for that question, but hey, reach out to Brian. Right? There was also a question of laddered securities. Let's just fix that. It's not laddered securities. It's laddered a bond portfolio. In a bond portfolio, we have a barbell strategy for a bond portfolio. We have a laddered strategy for a bond portfolio, and we have a bullet strategy. And so a laddered bond portfolio would be the most conservative. In a laddered bond portfolio, I say, Yasha, we always have bonds coming due that we can reinvest at today's rates. Right? So that's a laddered bond portfolio. Laddered means laddered in terms of maturity. A target or bullet strategy would be, Yasha, we have a kid who's starting school at 18 years. So I'm going to buy some 18-year bonds this year, mature in 18 years. Next year, 17 years, 16 years, 15 years, 14, 13, 12, 11. And then when that kid's 18, all the bonds come due at that same time that we need the money for the college. And that's called a bullet strategy. And the test question there would be that would be for something where we're a target date where, we need money, X number of dollars at some set date. And then barbell is where we have no intermediate maturities. We just have short-term and long-term. Incentive stock options, NSOs. Well, again, this is testable, so I'm not surprised. You should have been prepared to answer this. I don't know how much of my content you watch. I cover this many, many places, and other people do. In an incentive stock option, that would be what you would prefer, Yasha, that you get an incentive stock option, because when you're vested, you don't owe taxes until you actually exercise and sell. So that would be preferable to a non-qualified stock option. A non-qualified stock option is part of your compensation, and when it vests, you owe the taxes. I don't know how familiar you are with, current events, things that happen, but you should pay attention just for test purposes. And, when Elon became vested in his Tesla options, he had to sell like $9 billion worth of Tesla stock to pay the taxes because they were non-qualified stock options. So that's considered to be compensation to it. If it was incentive stock options, it probably has both, it would be my guess. There would be a tax advantage to that. I did not understand that. Well, there you go. So now you know, right? Income streams more stable in price, right? I get in trouble, Yasha, or Bhavana, because I use these terms when they're not perhaps appropriate. And we were dating. My contractor's here, just a sec. Just a sec, guys. I'll be right with you. We're not quite done building this off-grid location, so the studio's looking good, but we still got more things to do. So that was my friend Bob telling me what I owe him for stuff I didn't know I owed him for. So I was begging. Oh, well, I shouldn't say begging, but I have a sports car that was the first version of this off the boat from Japan. It's 24 years old. It's pristine. And, it's been sitting in my garage for 6 years in Vegas. And I decided, okay, well, listen, I'm not going to, this guy would say, well, what do you want for it? I said, well, you give me an offer. And, I'm already having seller's remorse. So anyways, I took it to Toyota dealer. They go, wow, this is awesome. This thing's pristine. I go, yes. I said, I need to put new gas in it, get it fired up. I'm going to take it out grid with me. But now I got to build a garage to put the thing in because, we got snow, we got varmints out of here. So one thing leads to another in terms of things I got to continue to get this off-grid location working. Anyways, Bob also said he went to Flagstaff and he got some more solar panel stands for my brother. I'm also the bank of Big Brother. I'm financing my brother's, finishing up his place. I said, Chris, you got to have reliable power off grid. And so, whatever you got to do to get your power situation fixed, I'm more than happy to help you out, because you can't be having a stick of dynamite in your cabin. He's using what it's called a Big Buddy. It's a heater that runs on propane. And the problem with propane is it goes kaboom, right? So, he needs to be able to power up his mini split is the thing. So I apologize for the interruption, but I'm sure Bob wants his money. The guy who's building my garage, I feel like I'm developing a good reputation here off grid because he's building the pad and he's an E guy. And I said, well, is it a typical deal where I pay you half and I pay you half when it's done? He goes, Dean, you're good for it. You can pay me when I'm done. I go, woohoo. It's better to find out, Cameron. I told you so. I wish I could tell you that Brian Test Geek sucks and don't worry about it, but that's not true. Brian spends a lot of time, trying to match up what's on the test in terms of distillation. There's not a lot of filler there. So Brian chooses to write a practice question. It's because it's something you need to know. Best way to reverse taxation rules. Well, fly high. I wouldn't put 529 into a retirement account. A 529 is a municipal security account. But 403B, so fly high. No, the RMDs are 73. No, for Roth, there is no required minimum distribution at 73. No, you have to have earned income. You can choose to draw down at 59.5. Make sure that you know in a 403B, you're using pre-tax money. And to qualify for a 403B tax sheltered annuity, you got to be an employee of an educational institution or an employee of a nonprofit. I'm just noticing here, I like your John Morant gunmen. Do we have some talented young men in the NBA? I'm a huge NBA fan. So for those of you who are not NBA fans, John Morant is an incredible athletic basketball player. But boy, I don't know if you're like me. I'm assuming you are an NBA fan with your moniker there. But can you believe that Luka trade? Incredible. I just can't believe that. I thought, somebody had hacked, Sham's account when that happened. I'm like, man, how could the Dallas? Mark Cuban sold the team, and his only comment was he doesn't run the team anymore. But I was thinking of Mark Cuban when he's, sold control of the Mavericks. He said the game is changing in the NBA. He said, while I'm a billionaire, I'm not a Ballmer billionaire. Ballmer's worth, 150 billion. I'm not, an Adelson who bought the team billionaire. And I guess those billionaires didn't want to spend 350 million on Luka. So off he goes. Please keep this live up if you can. It'd be these are always up. It's there's a whole playlist called Ask the Series 7 Guru. And every Tuesday episode goes in there. And then I also cut and splice and repurpose and make little shorts out of some of the questions that come up. Those are in there. So they're always in that playlist. They're there forever. And they're also available on Spotify as a podcast replay. So yeah, it'll be up. I don't delete. I guess if I said something pretty stupid, I could delete it. But, I don't think I've ever deleted one. Print out test specification. Absolutely. NASA has test specifications. And FINRA has content outlines. And Michael, spot on. For every exam you're taking, you should print that PDF out and have it next to you during your study sessions. And what you want to use that for is kind of like an intellectual inventory. So where you can say, oh, yeah, okay, I know this. Oh, I better work on that. I don't know what that is, right? You can use a plus, like, okay, I got it. Minus, I need to work on it. 0 meaning maybe you're at par. So I'm a big fan of that. Sometimes people ask me, Michael, well, how do you know it's not on the test, Dean? I said, because it's not in the content outline. They're not allowed to randomly make up things to test you on, right? On the 66, there's 2 of them. There's a NASA test specifications. There's also a study guide. Oh, is that it? Did I answer everybody's question? Well, that's crazy. Do I get to go pick up mom from bingo 10 minutes early? Nobody got any more questions? Crazy. All right. Well, if not, We do a drawing. The drawing, let me just put this back up here. The drawing, if you win, Marcel, he came before I made this change. So Marcel gets like a free coaching call. I think I owe him a couple hours for his wins. But what you actually get is access to my booking page. Most of the things on my booking page, you have to pay for. Tutoring on the booking page is $275 an hour. But if you go to other services, there's classes, there's a book club. We meet every month. This month, we're doing Source Code by Bill Gates, his memoir. And there's coaching calls, there's things like that. And so what you win is you can go on there and sign up for that without coming up with any money. So that's what you win in the drawing. Let me go find our giveaway tool. Boom. And let's see, let's put in, choose live stream. And you got to put in the chat exactly how this reads. Let's put in, what's a good thing for the drawing? How about, oh, I got one, RTFQ. RTFQ with an exclamation point. Okay, now let me go show you the Wheel of Fortune here. Share screen. Boom. Boom. Let me get rid of this. Get rid of that. And okay, you want to participate, put RTFQ. That stands for read the full question. Read the full question. I can't tell you how many times I miss a question because I didn't read the full question. I like to do the New York Times Saturday. They have a quiz, a history quiz, a current events quiz. And I thought I had 100 on this history quiz because I saw the word dinosaur. And instead of reading the question, I put the dinosaur before the Enlightenment. And then I said, how did I miss that? And then it said, when did they discover this fossil in Wyoming? And it was like 1960, right? I would also say RTFA. RTFA means read the full answer set. See what answers are being offered to you. So for example, if I have in the answer set, an answer that says as stipulated in the prospectus, I go, oh my God, that sounds like a great answer. I think I like it, right? I had a guy who was tutoring and I said, listen, I don't want to hurt your feelings here, but right now you don't know enough to know what you're being asked and know what answers are being offered to you. So, I would prefer that we do this tutoring after you've laid some more base knowledge. He took it in stride. And when we hit the Zoom link and I showed up, he said, well, Dina, I think I'm halfway there. And I go, what do you mean you're halfway there? He goes, well, I know what I'm being asked. Now I know what the question is. I'm still not quite good on the answers being offered to me. I said, oh, well, that's halfway for sure. Right? Isaac, everything is wonderful here. We're building my off-grid compound here. So I keep hoping the spigot of money I'm spending at some point I can turn that spigot off. But if you just joined us, Isaac, my contractor just came in, had me a stack of bills and told me how many hours that I owe him and his guys. And I'm like, I don't want to be rude and say, well, don't you think you should call me and tell me you're going to Flagstaff or you're going to Kingman and what you're up to, right? And so, oh, well, it is what it is. We are live, Nyla. If you have any questions, this is your last chance. Your last chance. All right, let's do the drawing. Boom. All right, the winner is, man, Marcel is the luckiest man alive. I'll tell you what, he wins these things. What you're told, I might have to make a Marcel rule and say you're only allowed to win 3 of these things before you have to retire from participation. It's not a problem, Marcel, because we'll just tack it on to my tab with you for early next week, right? So in your case, you don't need to sign up for the book club or the coaching call or whatever. We'll just add this to our session next week. Any other comments or questions here before we call it a night? We're here every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Arizona time. I got tired of trying to explain Arizona time to people because it doesn't change. So now I just say you can reverse engineer whatever Arizona time is for you. All right. Well, if not, remember, inch by inch, your exam is a cinch. Yard by yard, your exam is hard. And I'll see you next Tuesday, 5 p.m. Arizona time. Lone Star Galaxy, hey there. You got any questions? We're just going ready to call it a night. Yeah, Marcel is winner, chicken dinner. He certainly is. I got to go pick up Mom Marcel from Bingo. I'll tell her you said hi. And when I get back or tomorrow morning, I'll send you a link for early next week. If that doesn't work for you, we'll find a time and place, time and date that works for both of us. You go to the NASA website. So you go to the NASA website and you can find it there, right? All right. Any other questions, comments before we call it a night? Well, in honor of my wingman, Brian, who didn't join us this evening, I'll say, hey, remember, as Brian says, you take the test. Don't let the test take you. I'll see everybody next Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel.